viewers, and welcome to the latest in my series of short interviews with interesting atheists. This is a particular friend of mine who I've known for some years. He's of West African origin, but he's currently living in the environment of Southeast England, London-based job. And here he is. He's called Tavian Oladapo.
Hello. Hello, mate. How are you doing?
How the devil are you?
Chugging along, as they say.
Great. So, as I said in my intro to you, you're ethnically West African. Can you fill us in a bit about that?
Okay, well, I'm from the people called the Yoruba people, which is in southwest Nigeria, but particularly I'm actually from a tribe called Ondo, which is a part of the Yoruba nation. And both my parents are from the same tribe.
But you weren't born there, were you?
No. I was born in England.
Yeah. But you did have a West African upbringing part of the time, didn't you? In which you got didn't you?
Yes, I was in England, in London until I was 6. And then, as was the common thing at that time, Nigerians would come to London or England, get educated, and go back home. So my parents went back home, and they took me back, and I was in Nigeria for quite a few years.
Mm-hmm. But it was a Christian family?
Yes. It was a very, very Christian family. But ironically, I wasn't actually aware of that till kind of later on. It wasn't apparent to me until maybe I was sort of like 10, 11. And then I realized, and the thing is, in my family especially, it was almost a gradual thing. We were Christian, but it wasn't palpably evident. You know, my parents did the whole Christian things, and it was only when I was about, I think, 13 or 14, when they joined one of these Pentecostal churches called the Celestial Church of Christ, which is kind of like Pentecostalism on steroids. But it was a mixture of Pentecostal churches and African, almost. It was almost like a mixture of our indigenous beliefs.
Yeah, and
Christianity, if you like.
Wow.
Yeah, it was quite extreme.
So, was there speaking in tongues? Was there dancing?
Oh God, yeah. Yeah. There was a lot of speaking in tongues. This particular church, where you probably seen them around, they wear white gowns with white hats, and sometimes you see them with a blue thing around their waist or a yellow thing around their waist. I'll tell you an interesting story about that later on. But yes, this was what we became a member of, and the story was that the founder of the church had healing powers. He was kind of like another Jesus, if you like. The claim was that he could do all these fantastical things, and get this, it was in 1947 when he came across a monkey in a forest. And the monkey gave him this special powers to do all this special stuff, apparently.
Right. Monkey God gifts powers to you.
Well, monkey was the messenger of God.
Yes. So, how did you escape from that? Tell me about your evolution as a person.
Well, for a number of years, I kind of went along with it. I mean, I didn't really ask too many questions. There were some things that kind of didn't make sense to me, but I was a child, and in a culture where you're not actually allowed to ask too many questions, especially when it comes to religion anyway. So I went along with it. And then when I was 14 years old, my dad bought me a book, and I'll never forget this, about El Cid, the Spanish Knight. And it was such a fantastic book. I was so enthused by this book. But what bothered me was the litany of killing between Christians and Muslims. And so I thought, if these two people are claiming to worship the same God, why are they killing each other so much? Humans must have got it wrong. humans must have misunderstood God's message. I am going to go and read the Bible so that I can really, really understand where they went wrong. Well, that was it was, to put it mildly, it was the most pivotal moment of my life. It took me 9 months to read the Bible, and at the end of it, I was so confused, and I was absolutely certain that something's amiss somewhere. Either I'm inherently stupid, or I've missed something. So I went back and I read it all over again. And 2 years later, I concluded that this cannot possibly be true. And even if it was true, this cannot be the so-called inherent dictates of the creator of the cosmos. I no. I mean, you just couldn't. I just didn't buy it anymore.
Yeah. Well, you won't be the first person I've spoken to who was actually put off religion by properly reading the Bible.
Yeah, it's the best way to do it. It really is. I still remember first when I was reading about what I call the debacle of the talking snake in the Magic Garden, and the idea that two people speaking to a snake is the reason why there's disease. I was like, oh, that makes no sense. And I remember reading the story of the Egyptian firstborn, and I was actually shaking as a child. I just thought the story just sounded so unfair. You know, God wants the Egyptian king to free his people, but he hardens Pharaoh's heart to make sure that he doesn't free his people. I just thought that just made absolutely no sense to me. Yeah, it made no sense to me whatsoever.
Yeah. Well, as I said, the Bible is our best recruiting agent.
Yes, absolutely. I absolutely agree with that. And over the years, nothing I've learned subsequently has, if anything, my position has been further cemented because of everything else that I've learned.
So, if you had been born, or if you'd been born to parents who originated in northern Nigeria, what sort of a difference might that have made to your upbringing?
Well, clearly I would have been a Muslim. Well, I mean, that's not set in stone because there are Christians in the north, but I would assume that I would most likely be a Muslim.
Yes, because of the proportion. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, things are sort of kicked off in Nigeria lately, haven't they? I mean, I know you're not pleased with the sort of direction that your homeland has been going in for decades, really. But
well, I'm not pleased with a lot of things. I mean, when I was growing up there, I realized that, and even then, things were a lot better than they are now. Yes. I remember thinking that things were bad, but they were not that bad in the sense that there was a lack of electricity, there was a lack of running water, just the things that you take for granted in other societies. And to me, it was the case of, okay, things will improve. So when I left, I was certain that when I go back 10, 20, how many years that may well be, things are going to be different. My religious position, however, once I left Nigeria, I was able to express myself fully. And the irony is, when I first left religion, there was a doubt that I thought, are you insane? Are you sure you really want to do this? And the interesting thing is that once I left Nigeria and I was able to move to a society where this was not actually that unusual, and the more I learned, the more I realized that actually, no, you're not crazy. This can work for you. Yes. And it has done. Let me just go back a little bit, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
When I read the Bible, and I remember thinking, this just sounds completely insane. You know, original sin, the idea that if you don't believe in God, you're going to go to hell, and so on. And once I got to university and I started studying other religions, I thought, well, actually, there are different schools of thought, and not all of them are as extreme as the Abrahamic God. And then once I started to understand how Judaism evolved from even older a pantheon of gods, like the Canaanite god El, for example,
Yes.
and the Greek religion and the Roman religion, and I thought, they just made it up just like everybody else. There's nothing different about Yahweh, Zeus, El, Baal, Chemosh. There's no difference.
Many of them were born of virgins and also were resurrected.
How does that even make sense? God wanted to give birth to himself, so he impregnated another man's wife in order to. Don't even get me started on that. There's to be honest with you, John, it wasn't even the outlandish claims that really bothered me. I'll tell you what bothered me about the Judaic religion and all its offshoots. One, the idea of original sin I thought was horrendous. No parent would sanction such an insane idea. The notion that you put two people in a garden who couldn't possibly know that what they were doing was wrong because they had no knowledge of good and evil, and then a talking snake comes along somehow, which is able to speak the same language that they did. So clearly they must have invented this language together, right? Yes. And they have this conversation, and he says, eat that fruit, don't listen to the old bearded dude in the sky. Then they eat it. Then bearing in mind, God already knows all this is going to happen. So he comes back and he's pissed off, and he says, okay, I'm going to punish you for what you did, but I'm not just going to punish you. I'm going to punish your children and your children's children and your... Come on. Come on. It's like coming back and finding out that your children ate some cake in the fridge and the dog told them to do it, and you punish your children, you kneecap the dog, right? And then you get your grandchildren and start beating the head. I mean, no sane parent will do such a thing, right?
I love the way you put it.
These were the things that were going through my mind. And then the idea that if you don't believe it, we're going to hurt you.
Yes.
No one, sorry, I have to say this. You do not need to coerce someone to accept something that is true. You can convince them with irrefutable evidence, right?
Yes. But don't forget, although he's going to punish you, he's a loving father.
No, nonsense. Complete and utter nonsense. You don't coerce someone to accept something that's true. And more importantly, what is wrong with with being honest and saying, I'm not convinced? What is wrong with saying, I don't believe you? Show me more evidence. The only time you try to coerce someone to accept a claim is when you're trying to con them.
Yes.
And these were the things that occurred to me, and I was a child.
Yes.
I was a child, because I remember thinking, you wouldn't say to someone, accept that 2 + 2 is 4, or I'm going to break your legs. No. You just wouldn't say that, would you?
No.
2 + 2 is 4. Here is the evidence.
Yes.
And I remember when I got to America, and obviously, as you know, Americans are, they're very, very religious. And I was asking a lot of my friends in the college that I first went to really interesting questions, and they didn't like the questions. But something interesting happened to me. I was then invited to go to a meteor crater. Oh, yeah. And I remember thinking, so there are cosmic missiles slamming into the earth every so often, and I remember thinking, what kind of God would even do such a thing? What would be the point? It's like putting your children in a playpen and then throwing rocks at them.
Yes.
And so that was actually another branch of my journey into the whole idea of intelligent design, or what I call unintelligent design. And so all these different questions were falling into place. And the more I discovered science, and the more I learned about other religions, I mean, the Egyptian religion, I was fascinated with.
Yes.
Sorry, you were about to ask me a question, because I can talk forever.
I know, yes. Poke you and you get going, don't you? Yeah. Well,
Yes.
the Egyptian pantheon is interesting because they've all got human bodies and animal heads, haven't they?
Yes, but
Yeah.
what I found really interesting about these other religions is, that you get this idea that morality comes from Yahweh, the Christian God.
Yeah.
When I first read the 42 Principles of Ma'at from ancient Egypt,
Yes.
I was moved by it. And I remember thinking, they don't believe in Yahweh, but they understand the concept of good.
Yes.
Then I read the meditation. Sorry?
They're a lot better than the Ten Commandments.
Oh, come on. The Ten Commandments is just, it's nothing to write home about. Then I read, there's a saying from the Inca: do not lie, do not steal, do not be lazy. They didn't get that from Yahweh.
No.
The Code of Hammurabi, even though it's quite extreme, it was just man's attempt to furnish a moral code.
Exactly.
The 12 tables of Roman law is another example. You have all these different, the Gentoo code, the Gortin code. So I'm reading all this stuff, and I'm thinking, it's in humans to want to do good.
Yes.
And so religion actually is our earliest attempts to furnish a moral framework, but base it on a deity.
Yes.
But because it was one of our earliest, it was possibly also some of our worst.
Yes, we've learned a lot since then, haven't we?
Oh yeah. I mean, people always say morality belongs to the Christian God, and then when I read the passages in the Bible that talk about slavery and how the Bible tells you, Yahweh tells you that you may keep slaves, but if you have Hebrew slaves, you have to treat them differently. So this shows me clearly that the people who wrote the Bible knew that slavery was wrong, because they make a distinction between how you treat Hebrew slaves and how you treat non-Hebrew slaves. And it even tells you the slaves that you may have has to come from the foreigners that live around you. You may take them as slaves. You may take their children, right? This is supposed to be God. You may take their children, and you may bequeath them as to your children as property. And I remember reading that and saying, I thought people said that the Bible doesn't sanction slavery. Well, here it is. I think it's Leviticus 25, I think, 39 to 46.
That sort of thing is only said by people who haven't actually read the Bible.
Yes,
anyway,
they haven't read it.
Here's a question. If I was to give you a magic wand that you could wave over Nigeria, very troubled country at the moment, what would you wish for?
Oh, God. Whew. Well, can the magic wand do a whole bunch of different things?
Sure, yeah, it's magic.
Well, I would certainly want us to comfortably shine the light of inquiry on religion. I wouldn't say get rid of it.
No.
I would say allow people to scrutinize it and then be able to see for themselves. Because I don't think saying to people you can no longer do this is the way forward. The way forward is to say to them, have a look at this critically and then see what you think, and then you'll realize that this is actually not what is cracked up to be. So one, critical scrutiny of religion would be encouraged. Two, I think that the idea of humanism in the sense that regardless of what tribe or nation you come from, we are all human beings. And that doesn't even include just Nigerians, but everyone. Because if you really think about it, we now understand that our species is an African species. Now, how profound is that?
Yeah, absolutely.
For me, that is hugely empowering. It's very, very profound. To me, I think it's very, very profound. So part of my magic would be to foster the idea of a oneness, to build empathy, because I really do think that we lack it a lot. I really do think that the me, I want to enrich myself, and it doesn't matter how I do it. I don't care how I do it. I think that's a problem. And basically, just I don't know, just happiness and the pursuit of inquiry.
I agree with you. We can't rule out religion. That would be like
Yeah.
ruling out astrology. It would just annoy a lot of people. There's no need. What we need to do is educate people so that they
Yes.
rule it out themselves.
Yes, people don't learn anything by you banning anything. They have to come to the conclusion themselves.
Yes, exactly. Tavian, you've been fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you very much, John. Thank you for having me. I've enjoyed myself. I could have gone on all day, but I know.
Another time.
Thank
There
you.
will be more.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming on the show.
You're welcome. You're welcome. You take care, and we'll talk soon.
Bye for now.
Thank you. Bye-bye.